We are live, and I will. Okay, so we are live now. I'm going to give this a few seconds to stream because I need to mute my window here. I'm talking to actual viewers now, not you guys. So give me 1 second. The stream's gonna start, and then I'm gonna hear my own voice.
Okay, so we are live.
There it is. Okay. There we go. Now we are live without background noise. So we got Shane Griffith here. I should probably put it on me to hype. It's Greg from Pixel Fondue. I am wearing the same shirt I wore yesterday. I don't care. I'm locked down at home. That's fine with me. So, and I snuck into my office, and I'm the only one here, so not spreading the virus. But we got Shane hanging out in Chicago. We've got Michael at home in Massachusetts, and we got Greg Brown in Texas in his brand new house that I see has no furniture yet, or pictures on the wall. You must have just moved in.
There is furniture, just not in this room. This is my office. Thank you very much.
Look at those arches behind you. Look at this.
I know it's dramatic. It's ridiculous.
Nice. Like are you in Austin? No, where are you?
I am now on the outskirts of Austin.
Outskirts
now
of
that
Austin.
I got a house. Yeah. It's Austin's growing, but yeah, still officially in Austin, but in a new home which moved into last weekend. And talk about great timing for this potentially multi-month quarantine. That would be painful in an apartment building where all amenities are shut down.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So, good time. Yeah.
Looking good. Okay, so all right, so here we are. This is the Moto 14 sort of developer chat, and I always sort of preface this with, this is not we're gonna go through every single new feature with videos. Those videos will go out there in Foundry. I'll connect. I already put a link in the description. Thanks to Gideon, if you're watching, for reminding me. You're not being annoying. You're being helpful. And so you can go there and get to those videos. We're just going to kind of talk about, Shane has a number of announcements. So we'll show a few features and just sort of do what we usually do, talk about state of Moto and Moto community and stuff like that. And, we're going to answer questions in the chat, which I've got going over here as well. So we will get to those shortly. I was wearing a Nebraska beanie yesterday. I am wearing the Adidas hat today. So I did switch hats, just not shirts. So there we go. Okay. So Shane, how you doing? Has this been a productive cycle for you?
It has been. It's been a much better week than last week. I've been a bit home quarantined myself for a little while now. After all of my wonderful travels throughout Europe, I did have a bit of a bug, potentially this bug. So it knocked me out pretty good for the better part of last week, unfortunately. But now, for us, the fortunate thing is we're rather geo-dispersed the way it is. So for the Moto team in general, we're kind of scattered everywhere, home office as it goes anyways. So it's a bit business as usual. So it's what's a bit relieving for us as well. We're very fortunate when it comes to that. I know a lot of others in the world are not as lucky to be in that situation right now. And definitely my heart goes out to them for those times. But yeah, for us, we're marching along, and as of about an hour ago, we put 14.0 live, and then about an hour before that, we actually updated Moto Indie to the 13.2 release as well. So
nice. So we should spread the word about that, maybe that Moto Indie 13.2 is out, because there's always a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, so that one took a little bit longer because of a lot of this actually took a little bit longer than we were hoping because of the changes on the Mac platform with the Catalina notarization, and a whole bunch of things kind of drug out both releases a little bit. Not too bad, but we were able, with the assistance of Apple, to work through a lot of that stuff. So hopefully, things have tested well, at least on our side. But hopefully, people will find 14.0 to be a lot more stable and performant than maybe they found with 13.2 on the latest Mac OS. So we were able to find and fix a pretty big common crasher there, especially with brand new hardware. It was a little less apparent, I think, on people that were upgrading through the OSs, but people that bought a brand new system, it seemed to be more problematic and more present. which is very unfortunate. You buy a brand new system, and now all of a sudden you have tons of problems, which is
Yeah,
not a great
people are
experience.
super happy about that. Although you could just
Yeah.
throw the blame at Apple there, right? I mean, there was a problem with a lot of software.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough all around. I kind of get what the things that they're doing, but it was very difficult to cope with those changes in short order, and we made the best of it. I think both groups worked together very well. So got that done. Let's see, what else do I have on my list here for you? We're starting an image contest today, so we definitely. I hope a few people take this a bit serious, and then some people poke fun at it as well. I think it's a good, fun idea, but we want to run with the theme of working from home. We want to see your best artistic intent to what working from home means to you. And for now, we have prize commitments for up to 5 people to get a free license. And then I'm going to continue to work with some vendors to see what else we can throw into the mix on that. But that's a bit TBD. So for now, we'll start with the licenses and run the contest for 45 days. You can grab a trial if you want. The trials have all been reset across all of Foundry products, so not just for Moto today, but Nuke, Mari, Katana, everything in the Foundry reset the clock on the trials so that if you are working from home and you have some extra time to learn something, go grab a trial. Or if you need a license to work from home now because your license is tied up at work to the license server, things like that, go grab the trial.
Oh yeah, I didn't actually consider that. There's certainly a number of people whose license is just at their office, and so that's really that's cool. They can make that available to people.
And the way it works, like if you are on an older release, obviously nobody's using production quite yet, or maybe not on 14.0, but we do post quite a few of the older releases. I think we have posted up to 11 series or so on the Moto side. But the most recent trial will work with older releases, and I'm pretty sure that's Foundry wide across all the products as well. So in general terms, you're not only able to just trial the latest and greatest, but you can work on an older release as well.
Right. That's nice. And so for the image contest, we'll get the link for. Is there a page set up for that already, or are we waiting on a web page?
I'm waiting on them. The team is working on that right now, so I'm anticipating that to go live while we're in this call. So that should pop up on the general discussion in the community here shortly. And so go there and look for it there. It'll pop up there pretty soon, and then I'll pass you the link after the call, Greg.
Sounds good. I tweeted this image out yesterday. I thought it was hilarious. Let me just see if I could get it on here real quick. It's this zombie. You guys aren't seeing it because I'm not sharing my screen. But
I think we're going to get all kinds of zombie apocalypse to the kid in the corner.
Remember the zombie toilet paper video?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. It was so good.
Yeah, this was like a zombie in the basement, like making a toilet paper fort or something. It's pretty funny. But so, okay, we'll get a link up in the description for the image contest. And then... if you could wrangle a graphics card or two into that giveaway, that'd be pretty sweet.
I know, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Let's hope.
Yeah, you could lay a little bit of something on NVIDIA. Those guys, like, hey, come on,
they're usually pretty good about that. I honestly haven't had a chance to ask either one of them yet, so
yeah,
we'll wrangle that up and put that together here shortly.
So, interestingly, we are having a lot of... I suppose there's a pretty darn good chance SIGGRAPH... This is going off a little bit, but I'm supposing SIGGRAPH will probably maybe get canceled this year. How does that affect you guys?
It's interesting. We've had everything cancel pretty much through June at this point. June's about the furthest out that I've seen something cancel so far. I do think that... as we get closer to May, if the situation continues, then I think that's very likely to occur. We're doing things to adjust for that in how we get the message out. Again, we're relatively, in a business in general, I think all of us out there are relatively online, kind of work from home savvy, in general. So if anything, we're reallocating money that otherwise would go to some of these events to more online activities and things of that nature. And so I think that's going to be a common thing that you see throughout the industry as we move into the coming weeks and stuff. So it should be quite good. I think you're going to find a lot more information sharing and a lot more accessibility to information that may have only been available at these events.
Right. Okay, sounds good. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the chat over here, so I'll throw up some questions in a little bit once we get through a couple more things here. So Shane, is there any more announcements, product type announcements you want to go through?
Let's see. So I saw a few things about the roadmap and things like that. So at a high level, we're going to continue with the 3 release strategy this year. At least that's the current ongoing plan. We intend to do the midsummer release with the 14.1 release, and then the late fall, October-ish, November-ish timeframe for the 14.2 release. So that's all still relatively on path with our plans. One thing that we're doing that's kind of altered the optics of things, I think, a little bit. It gives the perception that we're slowing down or we're reduced, or all the doom and gloom scenarios that tend to bubble up out there in the community. But it's a result of a lot of what we call internally technical debt. So there's a lot of things and systems inside of Moto, just from a pure architecture standpoint, compilers, the Qt libraries, all the other libraries that are involved, in many cases haven't been updated for a decade now. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to carefully update and bring up to modern times and modern coding standards without being incredibly disruptive, obviously, to your day-to-day activities with the product. So what we're intending to do is release what we call a tech debt release, hopefully as a V2 release to the 14.0. Again, this is TBD, so this may or may not happen. I can't fully commit to it at this day. But our intent is to put that out there in parallel to the 14.0 V1 release, so that you kind of have, without anything new, you kind of have an apples to apples scenario of Python 3 being updated in the product, Qt moving from a really old Qt4 to Qt 5.1.3 or something like that, I think. Some other changes that we did within the compilers and the build systems. Visual Studio compilers are moving from, I think 2008 or 2010 to 2018, 2019 version. So massive leaps in the coding environment. And even additionally, it won't be in that particular release, but we're doing other work to completely, for all intents and purposes, re-author the programming language that Moto is written in to be just standard C++. It was a bit of a specific language that was developed by Stuart over the years. Yeah. That's been a bit hard to bring new developers into the code base. So we're modernizing that, adjusting that around as well. So a lot of big things, I just want to communicate to the community, a lot of big things are changing that enable us, as we come out of the end of this, enable us to be significantly more productive.
Yeah, so just overview, if I could recap that a little bit, because this, clearly there's fewer features than you guys generally release. And again, keeping in mind, you guys release something every few months now. So typically it used to be you'd get a release every year and a half or whatever. So, but you're working on some really large issues in terms of just updating Moto internally to modern standards with Qt, Python, the compilers, and some of these other issues you're talking about. And the C thing is interesting because for those of you new to Moto, it was originally created. I mean, Moto's not a new program anymore. It's over 10 years old, and it was originally
15 now, isn't it? I mean, it's really
it's
back quite a ways.
Yeah, it goes definitely. Yeah, so Stuart Ferguson, who is sort of the original architect of Moto, was very, as any programmer is, I'm sure, is very adamant about using one language or another. Definitely, I've seen this pop up before in discussions among developers where Stuart always wanted to just code in straight up C, correct? Instead of like what most people now use, C, C++. And maybe that was difficult to get other developers, new hires at Foundry, up to speed. Maybe, Shane, is what you're saying. And so you're basically just sort of not rewriting the program specifically, but I guess, or maybe you are. I don't know. It's sort of
it's a bit of a it's more like a translation exercise. So you're translating from one language to another language, and much of it maps over. So it's actually surprising to me. It's not quite of a heavy lift as I thought it would have been. I thought something like that would have been impossible to undertake or do. But we are having pretty good success with that migration. And we'll see. We're not completely done with it all yet to the point where we're even able to test it internally. If it goes south on us, then yeah, we obviously won't go to public with that change. But we have to kind of dive into it a bit further, and so far so good. I think I feel pretty confident about what the guys behind the scenes are working on there to make that happen.
Well, let me ask this, and if I'm getting too far afield, then don't let me know. But with updates to Qt as well, which I'm sure people watching know that's sort of the UI kit used for the UI in Moto, and other Foundry products as well. It's pretty common throughout the industry. With that and C++, is that going to make it easier for third-party programs to develop for Moto, or does it not have any effect on that?
Probably the biggest one is, and they're also interdependent. It was the big challenge that we had. We wanted to go to this year with a staged release of these things because it is a little bit easier to put a little bit out, adjust it, fix it, put a little bit more out, adjust it, fix it, and walk into it. But we started with the Python 3 update. We thought that would be rather straightforward, but then all of a sudden PyQt is dependent on Qt 5.9 or something. So all of our Qt stuff equally had to get updated just so we could do Python 3. And it just went on and on and on between all the different libraries and the licensing stuff as well, and everything around, just completely around the board. So long story short is I think the Python stuff will have pretty good update at a kind of a Mario Baldi level, William Vaughn, those types of guys that really get in there and do a lot with the Python side of things. Our bigger enterprise accounts do a lot with the product these days on the Python side. So they'll definitely see a lot of benefits and improvements to that kind of cleanup and update. The Qt side is interesting because, again, we don't quite know yet, but some of the instability problems we believe is a result of how Qt was originally implemented in the product, way back when originally. And a lot of things have changed within Qt. So as we went into that update, we found that we were using Qt in a way that was no longer supported, for example. So we had to re-architect a lot of that stuff kind of under the hood. And that could lead to pretty significant performance benefits. It opens the door significantly for what we do from a UI UX standpoint. We've been greatly limited there because of the older version of Qt. So there'll just be a number of just downward benefits to these things that will result into positive things for the users over the next few years.
Right. So that's actually really encouraging to hear. At least I feel that way, that you're actually doing all this work to bring Moto up to modern standards behind the scenes, and it's a risk for you guys, obviously, to some degree, because then you obviously don't have limited resources, and you put out a release that doesn't have as many features, and the initial thought is you guys are lazy or they fired everybody, so which is clearly not the case. People I'm sure are busting their asses doing this kind of work, which probably isn't as fun as creating a new whatever modeling tool or something, but it's good to hear that it's being worked on. And so people are wondering, there's a pretty good answer, I think, in terms of where Moto is with this release and some of the other things you're working on. And like you mentioned, if it all sort of works out, you may actually just have another 14.0 update with this under the hood new tech in it, correct? Is that what you?
Yeah, it'll depend how long it stretches out beyond today, essentially. So we've been working on this tech debt branch for a better part of 18 months to 2 years now, just to give you an idea how long this stuff takes to get to even to this point.
Right.
I think we'll see. We're just getting into the process of, now that we got 14.0 out, we're doing all the system tests and everything like that on this V2 branch, and making sure, we'll put it out there if it's ready to go. But if not, if it stretches too far, then that whole conversation becomes a 14.1 midsummer conversation, and we'll line up those together then.
Yeah. So I'm seeing, we'll just keep this tech conversation going for a little bit longer. And Mike and Greg, feel free to jump in with any thoughts on this. I'm just reading some comments here. And I see this a lot. Somebody asking, like, they like Blender's EV viewport, and, asking if we're going to get something like that. Now, one of the last conversations we had with Matt Cox, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you guys do go down the road of integrating Pixar's Hydra technology, that may help somewhere along the lines of bringing in new display technology. Isn't that how that works?
It certainly opens the door. It reduces their dependency on viewport display technology, wherever it may be, even Moto's default viewport or the advanced viewport. It reduces dependencies and opens options up on the offline rendering capabilities as well. Makes that much easier to plug in other renderers. I think the ones that are there today have done a really fantastic job of, doing what they could with the product, but something like a full Hydra implementation will make that much, much easier. There's super exciting stuff when it comes to what NVIDIA is doing with optics these days, and cross-product communication and collaboration with Hydra and USD. So it opens the door for, potentially particles and physics from an outside application or system driving things inside a Moto, or vice versa, things and systems inside a Moto driving, particles and systems outside of Moto. So I see Hydra USD as a very key thing to enable our product to be a lot more future-proof and more versatile into a lot of different things into the future. So that's a key investment for us right now. And then there was something else I wanted to say, but it escaped my mind at the moment.
Well, maybe it's with the offline renderers, because there's a number of offline. First of all, there's Empath, which is Moto's path tracer, which is being worked on. There's a few updates in 14, but you might want to speak to that a little bit. Also, Radeon Pro Render it's still being integrated and still being worked on. So if you want to speak to those two.
Yeah, so we're right now working on recompiling Radeon Pro Render. They have a V2 of that. I think they've released it on a couple other products already. So we're working with AMD to update that hopefully be posted to the community forum as a beta first, because it is a pretty significant code change on their part. So we've been working with them on that as of lately. Empath, the big thing there is, again, kind of this behind the scenes, under the hood stuff, is Alan's been going through updating his connection to the optics library from Optics 6 to Optics 7, which is, for all intents and purposes, is a complete rewrite of that connection. It gives us a lot more control, what we can do with the GPU and the hardware, but it is, it's a major undertaking to do that. It isn't just swapping in one library and out with the other.
So the Optics is an API you're talking about. It's NVIDIA's API for accessing the hardware and the GPU, so you could do things like super fast denoising, or potentially some of the mesh analysis of ray tracing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing there that we leverage it for is the real-time ray tracing, the RTX stuff that they have in that library. We do leverage it. We do offer in the product the denoising system that they have inside of there. But the main thing is the benefits of the GPU acceleration on the real-time ray tracing. So once we get that work done, our aim is still to go back to unlocking essentially the shader tree so that could be GPU rendered and GPU accelerated as well. So today when you render with Empath, it's still by and large 90% computed on the CPU, and it's due to the shader pipeline and the shader calculations that are, for all intents and purposes, CPU bound today. So that's another big kind of under the hood undertaking that I hate to put too much on the Hydra USD thing, but that is, one potential area where there's parallels to that work that are occurring.
Yeah, that sounds great. And just as another note, Octane continues to be updated. So Octane 2019, 2020 are available to get now. And Paul Kinane, who does the Moto plugin, does just a fantastic job. And
yeah, those guys are awesome.
Yeah, so I had recently put up a video with Octane just a couple days ago. So if you do a lot of product rendering, which is a major use case of Moto, you can get nice rounded edges in Octane now, which people have been asking for years and
Cool.
finally working. So that's going. I also upgraded to V-Ray Next on my system here.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I upgraded specifically because I wanted the good edge rendering. I needed the rounded edges, and then I finally started working on Octane. But V-Ray is great. V-Ray is fantastic. No, that's not true. I upgraded to V-Ray Next, and I had a really big project. And if you're doing the sort of third tier of rendering besides CPU, GPU that doesn't get talked about a lot is cloud. I actually put cloud on the same, sort of a three-legged stool there, because there are rendering situations that only cloud rendering can help you with. Like if you have a 3,000 frame animation due next week, unless you have access to a render farm, it doesn't matter how fast your GPUs are. Really, it's probably not going to get done. But you can get that done in a couple hours on a cloud rendering system. And V-Ray's cloud rendering system is fantastic. It's just the UI is great. Launch it right from Modo. You get thumbnail renders in your browser. It's really well done. So I suggest you check that out if you ever use cloud rendering. And so I guess we'll just segue into rendering. I know, Greg ran off. I was going to say Greg. I don't know if Greg is still there. I was going to say Greg can show the scale groups and the shader tree if you want to now. If that's sort of
yes, I can. It is all up and running. I have terrible down speeds and amazing up speeds because everybody is on the internet at home right now.
Right.
If you want to go ahead and let's see, I can share.
Yeah, you can just share your screen.
All right. And this is a great feature, and let's see, can everybody see this right now?
Yeah, that's coming through.
It is a silly sphere with a checkerboard texture. Just to talk about this feature a little bit, this is kind of an example of a new thing that we've been doing development-wise behind the scenes, where these are what we're calling Moto Tuneups. And so these are sets of small features that we can kind of execute within a reasonable amount of time, but offer users a lot of value. And this is also an example of a feature that we spoke to William Vaughn about. So speaking to clients of ours like William, people that everybody knows, saying, hey, what do you want to see in Moto? What would be valuable to you? And so he brought this up, and we started to implement this as one of the Moto Tuneups. So what you're looking at here, because this is a material that you will never, ever need to create, but it's just one that's really good for kind of diagnosing whether or not it's working well, is a multi-layered material that has a lot of geometric elements that are being projected in different ways. So if I come on over here to the shader tree and I turn off all my layers except for the texture layer at the bottom, this is just a simple checkerboard image, as you can see. And if I come on over to my texture locator, you can also see that it is being projected as a UV map. And I, of course, have a UV map. And if I turn on my secondary layer, it's another checkerboard texture, but it is scaled to be much smaller, and it's being projected as a solid projection. And if I go ahead and I maybe change to kind of an arbitrary value, which is oftentimes the case when you have layered textures, you have like a projected texture that's like at 1.32 millimeters. If I want to scale these two textures proportionally, I have to come into the UV map texture locator and scale the horizontal and vertical wrap proportionally to the solid projection, which is based on size. So if you have a very complex layered material, you're gonna have to go through every single layer and do the math relative to one of them. And it's an extremely time-consuming process. And this is made more complicated when you have additional layers on top of it. So I've got this procedural hex tile. I have a displacement on that as well. And as I come on up here, this material will be completed. And there's more things to take into account. When we were designing this, it was like, oh, wait, we need to take into account subsurface distance and things of that sort. So all you have to do to be able to scale your texture on a surface is come up to the group item. And you can see now at the bottom, we have this scale section. And you have toggles to be able to turn on these various elements like the UV horizontal and vertical scale, these subsurface distances, and decide what you're going to be proportionally scaling. And for each and every single layer, we also have the ability now to ignore group scale in an individual layer. So to give you an example of the type of situation you'd run into, not everybody pays attention to scale when they're modeling. I like to think I do, but I often find when I'm working on a project, maybe I didn't. And so if I go ahead and shut down this render really quickly, go ahead and let that catch up because I'm opening up a scale item, and I'll open my tool properties, which are currently off screen, and there we go. And let's say that my item is actually 1000% larger, and I open up my render. You're going to notice that the material looks completely different. And and in fact, I'm even inside of it. So we'll center on that. You can see everything in here is super, super, super small. And by the way, I'm sorry, I am running on a little quad-core laptop right now. And this isn't what I want. This looks completely different than that previous material. So if I have an item that is out of scale, all I need to do is come down to the scale property here in the group item. And now you're going to see that this updates and it accurately reproduces the look I had, even as far as subsurface distances are concerned, and all these different projection types, and whether or not it is a procedural or an image-based texture, and regardless of that projection type again. So one of those real quality of life improvements that we're focusing on for Moto 14.
Yeah, now if you look down at the lower right corner of your screen, you'll see all those channels there: subsurface distance, displacement distance, absorption distance, bump amplitude, size, the U and V tiling. And I tried this last night with I just grabbed some random materials from the built-in material library in Modo. I just went to the fabrics and started dragging them on a torus to see if this worked. And I remember when Greg was, working on this, he was asking like, which channels do you want to see involved in this? And it works great, and it's super useful. And also because most third-party renderers will work with the shader tree, if you're rendering in V-Ray or Octane, unless you're using those specific materials, if you're using just standard Modo materials, it should work with those as well, which is cool. So yeah, I think that was actually a really, really clever idea. And I didn't realize you could have individual layers ignore the scaled groups if you wanted it to.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. We made this a Moto Tuneup, which was supposed to be a very short development time span. And as we started designing it, we're like, actually, this is a really big feature, and it touches a lot of different things. And additionally, Simon Lundberg chimed in about being able to freeze this information. So we ended up adding the ability to apply your scale and return your relative scale back to 1000% and everything, or to 100%, and it applies all those scale values to your actual texture items here.
Oh. So that's super useful because so that was actually a pretty complex material with what you're just trying to show all the different channels it uses. But if you're just doing like a PBR workflow for games, you're going to have, albedo, normal, you're going to have probably roughness, and you might have, metal or something else on there. And you're not going to, typically what you do is you grab all those textures and you go to the UV tab and you try to tile them all simultaneously, screwing around. You can just go to, the scale group on the shader group item and just play with that until you are happy. You don't change them all at once, and then you just apply the scale, right? And it just
yep, exactly. And part of that was making sure that we are compliant with external renderers. And to answer Antonio Carboni, I hope I'm saying your name right. Yes, it does work with AXF. This is something that holistically works with anything shading related in the shader tree.
Right. Oh, by the way, I think Empath renders AXF in 14 as well.
Yes, it does.
And there is an AXF video on Pixel Fondue I did a month or two ago where I go through those in pretty good detail. If you want to check that out, maybe I'll put it in the description. So, okay, that's cool. There's some Thomas Grappi, who is a really talented artist and instructor. I think he's in France, right? Thomas, don't kill me if I got that wrong. But
I think he's in Canada.
Oh, Canada,
in, Vancouver.
French speaking. No, yeah, I was gonna.
There, remember? We went to SIGGRAPH.
Yeah. It was somewhere around there. I was in Vancouver. That's true. I'm just looking at the chat. He's talking about some sort of combination of Moto and Rhino. Rhino having a crappy renderer, and and potentially working with Rhino. But I know Moto used to be able to load Rhino files natively. Can we still do that?
Yeah, I think it's a bit out of date. The best way to do it is through the Empower plugin, because on the Rhino side they've significantly updated their SDK. So that's one that's just hasn't been updated on our side for a couple of years now, unfortunately.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's still Moto had a relationship with SolidWorks for a long time. I'm not sure if it still does or not, but it it is a really nice system for rendering CAD files, and so that may be something just to look at.
Yep. Yeah, and we're still SolidWorks does license essentially Moto, and they ship with it inside of SolidWorks. It's the PhotoView 360 render or feature set that's inside of SolidWorks directly.
Right. Okay. Cool. So we've got that going on, and then we've got some new display modes. Michael, you want to show off some of the new display modes?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great. The other thing is I just wanted to kind of pick up on what Greg was saying and doing for his demo to just give people a little bit of an understanding of the vision for the product and where we're going. This Tuneups initiative is a lot of times stuff that comes directly from you users. This I think was a request, and Greg really finessed it. And as he said, it came from, let's just try and do this little thing that will be helpful, and really made it very comprehensive. And that's something that is currently really important to us, and it's going to be important moving forward, is to take these tools, make them comprehensive, and take things like this that seemingly are arduous to go through and edit all these parameters and make them easy for the user to do, and just make it a non-issue so that you can continue to work faster inside Moto. And I think this is a really kind of cool example of that.
I agree. I think a lot of people, again, going back to product rendering, a number of people use Moto just for product rendering. And that's really the only part of the interface they care about. They're not experts in the program. They want to get their product in there. They want to, drag some materials on there. And having just one channel to edit all the scale values at once and just tweak that till you get it the way you want it is super useful. And it's funny because when Greg was starting to work on this, I was like, yeah, okay, it looks useful, but I could just do that anyway, right? But now that I actually start playing around with it, I was like, oh yeah, I totally use this.
No, that's the thing. When William Vaughn brought that up to us, and I was just like, yeah, that's useful. Wait, no. Oh my goodness. I've had so much pain with that in the past, like getting a big stack of textures and then realizing I need to reproportion them all relative to one scale item, and it's
well, like, you always forget something like displacement distance or something like that. Yeah. So, okay.
Some stuff that's parametric. I mean, dealing with all that is kind of a pain, but like that, that's our overall direction, is to do exactly that. Like, take this and say, oh, well, this would be helpful, but make sure that we take care of all the cases, and, it works, like you say, with AXF and holistically across the application from a kind of UI, UX, user experience type of thing. And also, if we run into something that's like, oh, no, we need to think about all these other areas, we really follow through that. And actually, I think another good example of that, that's kind of small, but in this release, is the world space fall-offs, right?
Right.
So with world space fall-offs, we had one particular case that was like, hey, this doesn't really work the way that everybody expects it to work, and it should work better. So we made it work better, and that was great. And then we looked at it and said, well, this should really be an option for all fall-offs. So, we're really trying to take an approach where we follow through and, really kind of make the global user experience better, and taking that from, users' recommendations, whether they're, big or small clients.
Right. So let's see. Did you want to share your screen, Michael?
Yeah, that sounds good. Let me try and do that.
It's on there somewhere. So
share screen. There we go. All right. And I'm going to hide you.
Oh, there it is. The dinosaur.
We see William's dino?
Yeah.
Sure do.
Cool. So thanks, William, for his cool models that we can kind of test stuff out with. In this release, again, we had a request to show some things, I think maybe even a little more similar to what people do in Rhino, to have something where we could see through the mesh, something that is going to be useful for topology workflows and even animation, maybe in this case as well, where we have some see-through options. So what we did is we implemented Ghost and X-Ray, and those can be accessed from this little button right here. So if we want to just turn on Ghost, we can click on it and we turn on Ghost, and you can see that we can see through our character. And another nice thing is if you want to do this for active and inactive meshes. So if I grab another piece, you can see this is on for the active mesh. We made that quick to do so you don't have to kind of go through and fidget with a lot of different stuff in here. You can just hold down Alt, and Alt is going to give you that inactive mesh. So let's say I want that inactive mesh to be X-ray. Now I have my inactive mesh as X-ray and my active mesh is in a Ghost type of setup, which is really neat. And these are all completely customizable. So you can set, one to Ghost, one to X-ray. I'll set the inactive meshes back to normal. And you can kind of hopefully immediately see the benefit to this. There's a lot of cool features in here. So obviously, it makes it useful to go in and be able to select things on the inside, be able to see, like we can see here, interpenetration between different objects in your mesh is really nice. And these aren't completely canned, which is really nice. So I'll just go back to Ghost here. We have a lot of parameters that you can adjust to get it just the way that you like it. We think we came up with some good defaults, but you can set that up. So if we go over here into the menu, you can see for active and inactive meshes, we have a new little area here for transparency overrides. Oh, cool. And you can see what it's set up to. So right now for active meshes, Ghost is set up to have the front-facing transparency at 66%. I can increase or decrease that to my liking. You can see we have front and back-facing wireframe colors. So I can adjust that to, again, whatever it is that I might want. So I might want to change this maybe. There we go. Pop that up and change it to a nice green. Delicious. And then we can kind of go and adjust that polygon back-facing opacity. And on top of that, the wireframe opacity in the back or front. So, we tried to contain this maybe to 4 or 5 different options. So we didn't have a list of a ton of options, but we think we got the most useful ones that people will be able to tune their Ghost and X-Ray to whatever it is that they want. And of course, as I said before, you have this for both active and inactive meshes. So you can set, one set of Ghost and X-Ray options here and a whole different set of Ghost and X-Ray options here if you want to, which is really nice.
So besides just being able to see things better, and you may be doing retopology or maybe doing rigging, selecting a bone within the mesh, could you show that again? Because that's actually super useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just pop out of here, and you can see now I have, whatever the new settings were that I put on, and those are the ones that I'm going to get. And then, I can go in and just kind of, let me drop that tool. I can select any bone or any other item that is inside the mesh. I know that we have, the bone overlay too, which is nice. But if this wasn't bones and it was just another piece of the object that was inside, either in architectural or other types of setups, then that's really useful too.
So that'll work with both Ghost and X-Ray, the sort of interior selection there. It's not going to get blocked by the item in front.
Yeah. Another nice thing about this that I really like is you can see it's working with whatever shading you have on here as far as textures and things of that nature, because this fellow has that on him. And we made sure, again, trying to approach it from a more holistic area, that this works with most of our shading. It is, as Greg answered earlier, it's not working with advanced, and it's not something that works with wireframe. Because
are you sure it doesn't work with advanced? I swear I had that working last night.
I'm pretty sure that it doesn't work with advanced yet, but that is something that we are looking at.
Oh, okay.
So if we want to go in and just do, shaded or gouache or whatever we want to do, this is going to work with all those. And even in places like Vertex Map. So you can see this little fellow has a vertex map.
Oh, that's useful if you're like want to flip, select some joints and see the VMap on it.
Yeah, exactly. We got this working with Solid too, which is pretty cool. So if you're working in that mode, so it gives you a lot of options. Combining what we have in here with any sort of the shading, because of course you can have different shading for background and foreground objects too, is really good. I'll just bring up another one of William's scenes here. And there we go. So here's this fellow, and I'm going to set maybe X-ray to the selected mesh there. And you can kind of see, again, if just regular modeling, not necessarily, a character, well, this is a character, but not necessarily rigging with bones or things, you can really get a good idea of how that interpenetration is working and where your objects are within each other, inside each other, which I think is really nice. So,
yeah, actually, this I think may be useful for a Boolean type workflow.
Sure.
With Booleans, I'll often create a specific material, and for like the cutters and things like that, I'll turn the opacity down so I can, or the transparency up, whatever, and so I can see through it. And being able to do that in the viewport seems like a little bit better solution than messing around in the shader tree for that.
Yeah, I think we're going to find a lot of that. Like I said, we try to design it so that everybody can use it for whatever they need it for. And I think we're going to come up with, people doing all sorts of great presets in here. The default one for, I think, inactive mesh X-ray is more of like a hidden line type of look. So, if I did take this and go to X-ray, I've already kind of messed with it a bit, but I'll go to active mesh for X-ray. And, you can see that you can completely remove that background wireframe if you want.
Oh, yeah.
So you hidden line look, and of course you can take that, transparency all the way down, and you get a look like that kind of hidden line you might be used to from Lightwave or somewhere else, which is really pretty interesting. So we designed this from a perspective of topology and modeling type of workflow, but obviously with the other character we brought up, super useful in rigging, super useful in weighting, and I think Booleans is probably another place that this will be really a good addition.
Totally. All right, sounds good. So let's see. There's a few other features I can show. I have MODO loaded up here. I could show a few of them if you want. I don't know. Should we do that? All right.
Absolutely.
I guess so. I need to actually share my screen so the Foundry guys can see what I'm doing. Otherwise, they'll just see my face. Where is that share screen? Is that up in here? Share screen. Okay.
Gear icon.
Yeah. I'll just share the whole screen there. Yes, entire screen. Share. Okay. Let me bring up Moto 14 here. So okay. All right. So this should be showing the live stream now. I just okay. So there is there's a few tool updates as well. Like the slide tool will work if you've seen this before. Maybe just bring up tool properties. The slide tool has a new setting. We're used to kind of seeing this. We can go in and slide verts along the normals like that. We can also slide it along, like the edges. We can slide it along the face now as well, which is kind of cool, like that. So all you super precise modelers can now slide vertices along a face, like so. And I think actually was the edge slide procedural mesh operation updated as well?
Yes, I believe so.
I think maybe it was. Maybe if I just go like this, let me go. I think it maybe was. Let me just do add an operator. We'll do edge slide, which is right here. And then I think maybe this has a couple.
Yeah, it should be in there.
Yeah, so anyway, so there's a procedural edge slide as well. It's got a few different parameters as well, radial and face. Oh, okay. So there's that. And there is, so we have procedural weight maps now. So this is, I'm just going to kind of turn these off. And so I've got a cube, and I can subdivide it, and I can subdivide it again, and I can set polytype to Cadwell Clark. And now I can actually set weight maps. So I'm setting an edge weight right there. And so I can actually, let me just view it over here and there. So we see the edge weight, and that's just set right here in the mesh operation. And we can also, right there, and we can also just make weight maps. And so here I've got a weight map. I've just got a little selection there at the bottom. So this weight map is right there. You look at the bottom. And I actually have a grow shrink mesh operation on there. So, and I animated that so you can kind of step through this and growing the weight map. And so the reason I think this is interesting, and it's not going to be super usable right now, but this is the type of functionality we need. This is similar to Mario Baldi's, one of his Tracer X plugins. And there's a video on Pixel Fondue showing this in action where you can grow a weight map procedurally, and you can also blur it. So hopefully we can get some more of these features in base Moto where you can blur this and grow it. This allows you to do a lot of these sort of motion graphics, Cinema 4D motion graphic type effects that you see, because you can use these weight maps for fall off, for shading, that kind of thing, and be able to control them procedurally and animate them is I think, going to be sort of the missing piece to the puzzle now that we've got updated fall offs and updated gradients and things like that. And so for those of you out there who do motion graphics type work, I think this is going to be really useful. What else? We have something called, you can actually do a markup now in the camera view. Do you want me to show that? Camera view markup?
Yeah, sure. That would be great.
Okay, so why don't I do a new scene here? And I played with this a little bit last night. So, okay, we'll just say this is my amazing animation here that I've created, and I am sending it off to my boss for review. This is like, I flipped a Taurus, all right? I'm going to Hollywood. So looking out of this from the camera view here, I can just see my camera properties, and I grab my camera. I can now create a markup. So I can just click on markup, and it's going to ask me for a resolution. So I could pick a resolution for my image and hit OK, and then it's going to ask me to save it. The one thing you do want to do here is make sure you save it in a format that has an alpha channel. For instance, if you try a JPEG, as I discovered last night, it's not working, and I'm like, why isn't this working? It's like because the file format needs an alpha channel to be able to mark up your scene properly and see through the image. So we'll just call this, we'll just call it camera. That's fine. And then I've got some markup tools here. So then if I'm said boss, I can go in here and pick a brush and pick a color. And I can say, fix this, and I can actually do some things like I can hold that image there until I find another frame, and then I can start like marking up this frame. I could say, this sucks, you're fired.
More cowbell.
More cowbells. We'll go to the last frame. We'll do. So we can sort of jump around like that. That's on hold. We can go one more and say, more cowbell. That's a good one. More cowbell. Okay. So you get the idea. So you can go in here, and then if you scrub through it, you can see like that just holds until I get to the frame where, I have you're fired, and then I ask for more cowbell. So markup's actually kind of, it's got a nice little UI, and it's kind of useful. So we've got markup ability now. And I'm not sure, did one of your corporate clients suggest this maybe? I'm just kind of curious, like where this came from.
It came out of some of our anime customers over in Japan, actually, were requesting it. There's a...
Oh, really?
TMS. They make a really good kind of camera rotoscoping plugin for Moto as well. It's great for like pan and scan type of keyframing and things like that. They do a lot with the film back stuff that's in Moto. But yeah, they were looking for just a much easier way to critique the anime stuff that they're doing with Moto.
So now I'm intrigued. Which company is this?
TMS is the short name for it. I think it's Thompson something. It's kind of a weird company that you wouldn't otherwise associate being a major anime producer inside of Japan.
Oh, okay. So they're creating animated shows, or they're creating software for animated shows?
No, they create the shows. They're actually create a ton of shows. I'll try to find it here.
And what do they use Moto for? Do they use Character Box or something?
They do use Character Box. They use Moto pretty much for everything, actually.
Oh, wow. All right, that's really fascinating. We should get some links to that. I'd love to see it. Matt Meersbergen, you're going to have to move back to Japan. You got an animated show there for you to work on. Cool. That's really interesting. There's a couple other... go ahead, Mike. Did you have something to say?
Oh, I was just going to say this was a really neat feature to work on. Mark, the developer, did a really great job. Making something that you could both do. Have the keyframes, so you could do animation review if you want, as you were kind of demoing here, Greg. and also, design reviews. So if you just have like a camera turntable and whatever it is, your product shot, whatever it happens to be, you need to do some markups there to say, change this color, do this, even changes to the model that you want to make, you can kind of mark up there. That is pretty nice. We integrated it with the general paint tools inside Modo, and built a whole new kind of backdrop type system that I think is working really nice. So it's something that is I think going to be really helpful to our users.
Yeah, actually, I was playing around with that last time. I was like, you know what, this is actually pretty cool. I like this. You could even make notes to yourself. I mean, honestly, it's a nice little thing to use there. So let me. There's a couple other things I could show. Chamfer Tool is continuing to be worked on. Let me just bring that up real quick. I suppose I did give this a little bit of a run through last night. So the chamfer, let me start a new scene here. So the chamfer tool, as you know, is we still have edge beveling, but this gives us some more options. I'll just do it on here. So we can use, I could just use the on-screen tool here, but we can use profiles now. So we can grab a profile there, and so you see the chamfer tool will use these profiles, which is pretty sweet, and you can adjust that like that. Looking good. And so, I would like to see, here's what I'd like to see, now that I've got your attention, I'm sure other people are going to be interested as well. One, I can't even remember how to make profiles, so let's get a tutorial out there on how to make profiles so people actually use this, right?
Yeah.
Because I think these have been around, Andy Brown probably made these or somebody, these have been around for a while. Secondly, I would love to be able to draw my own with a little gradient here. Is that something we might be able to do at some point?
We have discussed a profile editor thing of some sort, but that's not something we can commit to on a timeline. But it is another one of those things that we do talk about behind the scenes, and I want to make sure you guys know that we do consider these things.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Draw with a gradient with different curves and everything.
Yeah, I think I'd like it just like a inline gradient, just to make some points and just sort of create my own live and tweak it live would be fun to do. This will work with actually mesh operations as well. If you do a chamfer over here, if I could spell chamfer, where did that word come from? Chamfer. Is that did I delete my box?
It's better than fillet.
What's that?
Oh yes, it is better than fillet. Fillet. Yeah. Let me. Fillet. Yeah. Like bass and bass.
What's bass and bass? Yeah.
Yeah, same exact spelling, but different meanings.
Right. So let's do a chamfer here, and so if I have a edge selected, it'll create a selection for me. So when I add chamfer, it'll create that index selection for me. If I have something selected when you create the mesh op, so that's a nice, useful little shortcut. We can actually go into the tool pipe here, and I believe if you add let's see, there's a new subtool. Which one is it? It's the content preset, actually. So you can use a content preset in here, and you can grab one of these guys and use it procedurally, which is pretty cool. So you can use that the profiles procedurally as well as with the live tool. And so again, I like where this chamfer tool is going, and we can do I think once we are able to I'd love to be able to draw my own sort of profile there. And a number of the tools, actually Bridge, and there's a whole bunch of tools that could use that functionality if there's some way to sort of implement it generally. To be able to draw your own profiles between edge extrude, anything like that would benefit from that.
Totally agree.
Yeah, just as a thought there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that. Let's see some questions in the how I make a profile exactly. Antonio Carbone. Yeah,
Mark,
so we'll get
tomorrow.
Mark has committed.
Mark White
in text.
Moto Concierge is going to get that put up there. So that's good. So we'll get the profiles up there, and also those are shareable. Are profiles in cloud assets by chance?
That's a good question. I know brushes are, but I don't know about profiles.
Yeah, it might be nice to get profile. They might be actually. I'll have to take a look, but. So Yeah, right. Why no graph for profile? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Getting a graph in there. Okay, so let's. I don't know. Do you guys want to like just chat with the community a little bit before we wrap it up, or is there anything else you want to say about this release?
Yeah, we can answer a few questions or real quick here. I do apologize. I have to head out to another urgent meeting, but if we wanted to roll on, Michael and Greg can probably happily stay on.
Sure.
No yeah.
But yeah, I think my last 2 bits is we put a lot of effort into rebuilding the website, videos, the new features page, and the content. There's all kinds of great stuff out there. The release notes is always a really good source to go to for did this get fixed or did that get fixed. There's a full log of all the bugs and the defects and things like that are in the releases inside of there. The learning page and the help docs has been improved quite a lot as well. And if you're on an older release, you can go in there and see what's new by each release. So as you were saying, Greg, earlier, we're kind of in this mode of more incremental releases. So it's a bit harder to evaluate just any one particular release. So my guidance is always look at what we do across the entirety of the year and compare us on that more so than necessarily what we did in just 0.0 or 0.1 or 0.2 and so on. The sum of the parts, to me, I think we stack up, really significantly well compared to what I see at least others out there doing. We're producing a lot of volume considering all the other stuff under the hood that we're changing at the same point in time. So
just a couple for Shane here, but I know you have to run, but these are kind of Shane type questions. Thomas, yeah. I'm sorry guys, they're like all popping up really fast here. Thomas Grappy had mentioned, Shane, do you think we can get a 2/3 year student license instead of 1?
Yeah, I don't have an answer on that. I think it's still just 1 right now. I know that was a bit debated internally. The one really nice benefit of our educational system is, and we did completely reprice Moto educational licensing. It used to be only part of the production collective, which I think is $149 for students in the US as an example. And now we have just a Moto specific offering that is in the $40 to $50 range per year. So essentially with that, if you get through the first year free, you buy a year on your own, which is a lot cheaper now. I'll point out that again. But then you can convert that license to a full commercial perpetual license without having to pay the perpetual license fee. So that saves you, I think, top of my head, about $1,400 if you want to convert that license over to a full commercial license at some point when you graduate. So that's a pretty significant value add that I think goes unnoticed a lot of times. And we have been working on the pricing so that it is more approachable. Unfortunately, we're not at a scale at which we can just give away the software for free. I would love to do that, but ultimately budgets are tight, and we have a lot of headcount to support in the staff and things like that. So the net at the end of the day, we do got to keep every little bit of money that we have flowing in as best as we can.
Right. We do have a question real quickly, and this is maybe the last one for you, Shane, if you have to run. Jawad was asking about a sort of a lack of tutorials for new features. Now, I think there's probably a little. So my thought is there's tons of tutorials in Moto, and we've got like over 1,000, or 1,500 on Pixel Fondue, and there's KiteString now is coming online. Foundry tutorials, I'll admit, they're a little bit hidden. And there's some that are sort of behind a bit of a subscription wall or whatever. There's some really good ones, like Matt, I know, does those. And so, is there a way to get those more to the forefront? Maybe we link to them from Pixel Fondue or some place where people kind of go daily. You don't necessarily go to the Foundry daily.
Well, I think there was a good thread on the alpha or the beta or whatever a while ago about could we bring that over to the new Learn portal. There's learn.foundry.com where you can get all of the free resources, which, by the way, we did just license William Bond's Moto Essentials Guide, which is a fantastic place to start and pick up and learn Moto with. So that's now free for everybody, available for download off of our website. But there is a bunch of stuff that's only available on the community that's exclusive to active Moto subscriptions and maintenance customers. So it's a bit of a value add benefit if you are an active subscriber. So it is a bit preserved for that. But I do think there's an opportunity to bring that more over to the grouping where the rest of the stuff is, and we are looking into that.
Okay, and there's always initial video, like they always have videos covering the new features. They're oftentimes they're not really tutorials. They're just sort of videos on how the features work. But we'll take, if you have requests for tutorials, you can always just ask Pixel Fondue. There's 10 of us that create tutorials that go up on the Pixel Fondue website. And again, if you're somebody who likes to make tutorials, you can contact me, just Greg at pixelfondue.com, and we can maybe get you set up to put tutorials on Pixel Fondue as well. So I think and sometimes I get frustrated because sometimes it's hard to search for it. If search Moto training on YouTube, Pixel Fondue has it's by far the place to go, but it doesn't even show up on search results, and I don't even know how to. I mean, what the hell? I don't even know how to.
It shows up on my search results. Maybe you're searching something else too often.
Well, maybe I'll see it tends to be weighted towards view count, because there'll be a tutorial that came out in 2007 that has a huge number of views, but it's for Moto 401. That shows up. I don't know. I don't understand SEO, but I understand the frustration with searching. But if you go to the Pixel Fondue's YouTube page, you can search. Also, just the webpage, pixelfondue.com. There's a search there. It all works pretty well, so you can go there specifically.
And Rich Cherry also pointed.
Sorry, Greg. I try to make that obvious within just the splash screen of Moto itself. So we have links to Pixel Fondue. We have links to KiteString. We now have links to Williams' Moto Essentials guide there. So, open ideas how we can make this stuff more visible. But it is very difficult today with Google Analytics and how the search mechanism works. But there is a lot of volume of content out there. There's tons of stuff.
And I think there's a lot of volume of content, and just I've been an educator for 15, maybe 20 years, doing CG animation education for colleges in the Boston area. And one thing that I think is really nice is the Pixel Fondue stuff, Williams Vaughn in 60 Seconds stuff. That's all. There's a huge amount of it, and it's really good quality. It can be problematic when you're trying to learn any sort of package, and you search on YouTube and you get 1,000 different tutorials, and a lot of them are kind of teaching you the wrong way to do things. I think, Greg, you do an amazing job. The content on Pixel Fondue is awesome, and William stuff is also great. And again, I do want to reiterate what Shane said. The licensing of the weekend crash course Moto Essentials up on our site is awesome. I mean, it's kind of end to end. You want to learn Moto and you're kind of starting out, or there's a lot of tips and tricks in there too. It's an entire kind of PDF book, but also there are videos that go along with everything. So I don't know how many videos are, but there's at least 20 or 30 there, which are really great. Yeah,
that's actually really great. Shane, real quick before you go, HDPI, whatever high density pixel display support, is that something maybe Qt5 would help with?
Indirectly, yes. So I was actually quite surprised how well high DPI works on the Mac. We've been working on HDRI viewport capabilities on the Mac. I've seen that working. It's phenomenal. Unfortunately, you can't capture it with the camera because your camera can't capture the difference in the HDRI.
Right, yeah.
I'm not sure how the hell we're going to market that one. It's going to be interesting because
we have to photograph the display externally. We can't screen capture it and then redisplay the image on a non-HDR monitor. It's funny. It's a very, very impactful if you have an HDR monitor.
So that has come along quite well. I am aware of scaling on Windows is a bit rubbish. That's a bit unfortunate how Windows handles scaling itself. It's a bit how we don't have things properly set up to scale to 4K resolutions with icons and things like that inside of Moto. overall, we're working towards today. I think you mentioned earlier, kind of mistakenly, Moto's UI is actually not Qt based. Some of it is, some of it is not. But over time, we're going to rebuild it to be Qt based, and then that's how we'll get to that point and have a fully scalable UI on the Windows.
Cool. Okay, sounds good. So Shane, if you need to run, go ahead and run. I think we can.
Yeah. So I'm going to bow out. Thanks again, Greg. Really appreciate it as always, and hopefully hit you up in another month or so on another one here.
Yeah, totally. And we can continue. If you, Greg and Michael, if you want to chat for a little bit longer, we can do that. There's a couple other questions here. So, I've actually talked to Michael about this personally a little bit. I know Greg has been putting some thought into this, and I saw a question up here, maybe from Nigel. I sort of scrolled by it, but Boolean workflows. So a sort of Boolean workflow, kit bash modeling workflow, potentially with Mesh Fusion, maybe not with Mesh Fusion, but just another way of visualizing your UI and your data and everything else. Is this something you guys are sort of putting some thought into?
Oh yeah, very much so. I mean, the traditional standard Boolean workflows, that's something that we are talking about, especially as far as performance is concerned. That is a constant conversation. Now, the ways to display this is a big thing with Mesh Fusion right now. And so during the 14 series, we were putting together some ground up enhancements to the Mesh Fusion workflow, which probably would be the best thing for us to speak towards tool workflow enhancements overall through the 14 series. Michael's background as a designer is honestly it's prolific. You have a lot of experience, Michael, in design and workflow design and UI and UX design. And so the moment he hopped into Moto, he was immediately identifying problems, and it became a high priority for us in the 14 series to try and reinvent some of these things. And so we also have ideas as far as how general tool workflow could be enhanced as well. Not sure if it's going to make it in the 14 series, but the design work on that end is going very well, and you guys will be seeing it in the near term if we can expand that beyond just the 14 series alone. So big changes there. The Mesh Fusion workflow I'm very excited about because I want to make sure that people can spend more time in the viewport, have less trouble finding out what relates to what and how, and not go into these multiple separate menus that are full of esoteric channels that nobody knows what the naming conventions actually mean.
Right. So there are actually some Mesh Fusion updates in 14. It has this kind of cool embossing thing where you could put this, you could project a curve onto a surface or draw a curve on a surface and sort of pull it out or suck it in. I mean, Mesh Fusion has always had some of the coolest tech, but it hasn't been super accessible in that it works a little bit differently than regular Moto. There's lots of levels of properties and features. It gets a little deep. And then if you don't use it for a month or two, then you get back into it. You're like, wait a minute, how's this work again? And so what you're talking about is streamlining this workflow, really updating it, making it, taking that awesome Mesh Fusion tech you have with these real-time Booleans with sub-Ds, and being able to do these parametric surface strips and things like that, and making it much more accessible to users.
Yeah, where you can actually just click on things in the viewport and start understanding quickly what does what. It's not something you're going to have to go and figure out where are all the various things and how do they relate to each other. You should be able to click in the viewport and understand how to do everything just by what I like to call the Transformers method of figuring out how something works. Because when I was a little kid, I never read the manual for how to use my Transformers. I broke a few of them. But I think that's how most people played with their Transformers. It's like, hey, how do I twist this thing around and make it turn into a spaceship instead? So it needs to be discoverable, and that's a very high priority design-wise for us.
Totally.
A lot of good work going into that. Greg's doing a ton of awesome design where you can again stay in the viewport, be focused, and things that are focused around Mesh Fusion like that. So this first. We got some, as you said, Greg, some really cool Mesh Fusion features in this release, and we're going to continue working with that for sure.
Sounds good. So we do have a question about ArchViz improvement. Now, sort of a general question, any ArchViz improvement, because that could cover a lot of things. But the first thing that sort of pops into my head that would be nice to have with that would be if USD is supported by some of these ArchViz programs like Rivet or some of these other ones, and also having the various DisplayPort, display options you might have with Hydra. Does that seem reasonable? Is that something that might happen with ArchViz, or is some other way to look at this?
I mean, I think ArchViz could certainly go that way. We're definitely looking at USD, and that could be a beneficial kind of back and forth. I've been seeing some really nice ArchViz renders with Empath. Obviously, we have a bunch of other renderers to choose from. As well, right?
Empath is going to be way better for ArchViz than the standard Moto renderer right now. I mean, it's just path tracing is going to be way better for ArchViz.
And I think I saw someone asking about denoising and things of that nature, and that's definitely something that we're looking at. One thing that excites me, I think I might have said it in the last stream a couple months ago when we came out with Empath, is the way that it develops its noise is very even, which is a little exciting to me because obviously I'm a terrible geek. Rendering noise would be exciting. So, and if you kind of take that noise, it's going to be easier for kind of walkthroughs in order to get smooth animation, which can be good.
Right, totally, yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
One other thing I wanted to mention about Empath is in this release, we have the kind of finessed a little bit the light path workflows for your exports, and those are really good. Those are really helpful. Just as far as having Empath and being able to split out the AOVs, a ton of work that I've seen, on ArchViz, you definitely spit out those renders and tweak them inside of a Nuke, an After Effects, or Photoshop if it's a still, and I think that's really useful. And we're moving forward and making new AOVs and making those things work better too.
Right. So I'm seeing a little more chatter on the chat window. So specifically, maybe importing AutoCAD drawings. That's interesting. I wonder if there's a third-party tool that may do that better than you guys doing that. But
there may be. I guess we have to kind of look into that a bit.
Because there may be. I'm just trying to brainstorm your question there, and it seems like translating some of the AutoCAD drawings to more sort of standard sort of step or IGES or some of these more standard CAD files that are handled really well by Moto and the CAD loader program may be a way to go with that versus an importer specifically for that. But just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, that could definitely be the case. I mean, I guess what I can say about that is this is something that's important to us, and we know it's important to our users, and it's something that we're definitely looking into.
Right. Motion vectors, FX node. I'm not even sure what you mean. That seems like a Nuke question.
Well, we can go back to GPU rendering very briefly.
Okay.
Antonio Carboni. We do have a GPU renderer that ships with Moto, from AMD, and so ProRender is in. And as Shane mentioned, we are working on the V2 of that. So there's going to be an update to ProRender, and that is just a GPU renderer, period. And the V2 has more flexibility. I don't want to necessarily specify what flexibility because I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but definitely much more powerful. And so there's that. And also Empath is a hybrid renderer. We do leverage the GPU for ray casting currently, but it was architected to start as a CPU renderer that in some ways could leverage the GPU. And of course, we are exploring how we can expand the use of the GPU further. And so it's very, very high on our list, and we definitely understand the value users place on GPU rendering.
Yeah, so Shane mentioned earlier they're working with the new optics API with NVIDIA, and the way Empath is made, you just basically pick your API from a dropdown, right? So you can get like denoising from optics or denoising from a different vendor who has one. I think Intel has one, and there'll be some others, but. So obviously, like Alan is sort of future proofing that. It just takes time. Like the shader tree is a complex thing. all the procedurals and everything else, they're all CPU programs, so to speak, and so they need to be turned into GPU programs. And it already works with things like gradients, and some of those have already been done, but that'll happen with more. And people love the procedurals in Modo, so we'll see that. So where are procedural VMAPs heading, the clowners? Well, I don't know if you saw earlier, but I showed that a little bit. My hope is you'll see procedural VMAPs, being able to manipulate VMAPs procedurally, assign them, grow them, blur them, combine them in a Boolean sort of way, add, subtract, multiply. Those are the things I'd like to see, and I'm guessing are probably, if you guys want to speak to that, I'm guessing that's probably the intention.
That's another area that we are planning on expanding further. It's nothing specific on when we're going to be implementing things like that, but we wanted to at least give people access to vertex maps for now. Obviously, it'd be super valuable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and this is another one like, Ghost, in my opinion, where we just saw a ton of people on the alphas and betas just making really cool stuff using procedural VMAPs when they really didn't need to, because it was so, so easy to use and produce some really cool results. So I think from the community, we're going to see a lot of great procedural VMAP stuff, and that's going to help inform us as to where to go. But I think your comments, Greg, are spot on as far as direction and things that you would want to do with that stuff next.
Yeah, and actually to elaborate on that a little bit, just an example of the way things go on behind the scenes. That story was originally procedural edge weighting. And we're like, yeah, procedural edge weighting would be great. And then actually Ben, one of our QA guys, was like, you know what, I got this. And he put together a whole procedural vertex map setup. And so it's another example of those things that starts out as something small, and then we realize, wait, this could be something much bigger, and we expand upon it, and we actually offer a much more robust tool from it.
Yeah, so Ben Holling, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Ben, I'd actually suggest Ben look at some of the Cinema 4D Fields videos to see what they're doing with the sort of being able to grow these. They're calling them, they have a different name for them, but basically this sort of manipulating VMAPs procedurally and being able to use those and the sort of motion graphics and things like that the Cinema 4D is famous for. But all that stuff is very doable in Modo, which is a little bit of work, especially with the work with fall-offs that's already been done and the gradients that plug into fall-offs. And so there's a lot of potential there. And really, they're like you guys are like 75% of the way there. You just need to get the VMAPs done. Somebody had mentioned updating the render window frame buffer. Yeah, I think that's surely you guys that's on the list somewhere.
It's on the list. Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally. And IPR. I believe when the person says IPR, they're referring to the preview window essentially. That'd be great to have a live preview version of Empath. It's a surprising amount of work. It really is, and it's one that we definitely want to be able to have in Modo, of course.
Right. There's some mentions about the VDB improvements. So VDB being the volumetric body. What does VDB stand for again? I can't remember what that acronym is. That's not right. Acronyms.
Oh God, yeah.
Acronyms are bad. It's like a standardized volume data, right?
Yeah,
I would love to see that as a mesh operation. You can actually work with VDBs in the schematic. I'd like to see that as a mesh operation at some point. It gives a little more flexibility when voxelizing things. But and being able to do some Boolean operations on those voxels would be fantastic. So if somebody there wants to take that, again, that would work in with more motion graphics. Again, like if you watch some Cinema 4D videos and what some of the things they've done with their voxels and being able to get a Lego type effect or a brick type effect with some of their motion graphics, it's really Modo has a lot of that capability, and it's just a couple more features would allow that. So that's just another thing that's popping out at me. Volumetric database, Mark White. There we go. That make DB database. There you go. All right. Non-linear animation. Clearly, we've been working towards that. We've got character groups, and then we were able to get the motion clips, and now we've got actual motion layers we're working with. In fact, there's Matt Mearsbergen did a Pixel Fondue video on those just recently. Mark, who's working on that? Mark White.
Mark White, yeah.
So he's
Mark Brown. Sorry,
Mark Brown.
My last name. Go figure.
And Mark Brown has been doing Moto coding since the beginning, so he's been working on those. I'm sure he's working on a nonlinear system. I'm guessing. I don't know if he can say it, but that seems to be obvious to me that where this is going. So I suspect this will probably be putting these guys on the spot, but I suspect this is definitely where that's going. And so you can actually do quite a bit with the little character clips right now.
Sorry, was it you could do quite a bit with animation layers, or what was it?
Yeah, you can actually do quite a bit with animation layers right now, and so it's not a full NLA, but you can actually there's a fair amount you can do with those right now, and so start playing with those, and then I think there's probably going to be the other aspect of that is being able to maybe export these types of things to a Unity or an Unreal Engine when you could really author not just your model and UVs and textures in Modo, but actually author your animation as well as something that we'd like to be able to do as Modo users.
Right. Yeah. No, that'd be great.
Script node. Gideon is asking about a script node. We have a third-party one by Sean Free, who's doing who will be doing a Python course at KiteString soon. Maybe something more scaled back that ships with Modo. Any thoughts about a script node? We're sort of
you're kind of getting into the little specifics. I guess just to generally say, there's a lot of stuff we talk about. It's all fun and exciting, and then we have to decide. Maybe if something's already offered by the community, maybe we shouldn't work on it. We should find another cool thing to work on. The script node's great. What Sean's offered is great. And it's something that, who knows, maybe in the future we'll prioritize that. But right now it's a little bit on the lower side.
Yeah, and honestly, the third party, honestly, I would just get Sean's. Just go buy it. It doesn't cost much. He did an awesome, he's super good at it. Just get that.
Absolutely.
Some of these other things, there's a fair amount of third party stuff and more stuff obviously coming out all the time for Modo. And I just maybe what I'll do is I'll get Sean on a live stream and we'll talk about his Python plugin and the Python sort of script node he's doing and what it can do, because I think a lot of people will be interested in that. So we can do that. And so maybe I think we're running out of questions. So maybe time to go back into isolation. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Only a few more months left.
I want to see some posters or some pictures on those walls, Greg, next time we do one of these.
Actually, I think you're going to like the one I have. It is City 17 inspired.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, I found some really awesome giant posters that are actually just high resolution screen captures from Half-Life, and it's they're art. They are art. They are definitely art.
Oh, I got I've got a couple of Portal ones on the wall here.
I was with James Darknell when we were at Valve, and he took a photo for you because he's like, I gotta send this to Greg. He has it on the wall, and I can show him the original. Yeah, that was awesome.
Half-Life Alex, that's coming out.
Oh man. Are you kidding me?
2 days or something, or tomorrow? Yep. Is it tomorrow?
It was actually. Was it 2 days ago? Was it the 17th? I'm confused between. It's ironic. This is like 2005 again, 2004.
Yeah.
When it's wait, when does Doom come out? And when does Half-Life come out?
That's right. Yeah, I think Doom Eternal's out. I think maybe they preloaded Half-Life on the 17th, and it's maybe out tomorrow. Yeah,
I've got my Valve Index ready.
Oh, you got it. So I'm trying to figure out how to hide a $1,000 index purchase. It's for work, right? But
it is. Definitely. It's an important device.
Card. No problem.
Yeah. No, that looks so cool. I can't wait to get into that.
And by the way, we do support the Knuckles controllers in Moto VR. That is an update that is little known.
Oh, seriously?
Yes, we do.
We should see a little demo on that. Maybe throw a demo together before you put furniture in one of your rooms. Maybe you have a wide open space.
I actually have a VR space.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's pretty sweet.
All right. Yeah.
Somebody was asking about some modeling improvements. We do have some great modeling improvements that maybe we didn't show directly here. With Bevel. So we have unbevel, we have edge relax, we have some cool features there. We obviously in this stream didn't go through all the different features in 14. That's not necessarily the intent, but you guys should definitely go to the page like we were saying earlier, for new releases that I just posted up there. And check out all the quick clips, check out all the new features and what they are, and see what's in the release.
Sounds good. Greg, any last thoughts before we sign off?
No last thoughts. But we will be, as a team, communicating with you guys quite a lot very shortly. And we've got some things we want to collaborate with the community on. And so you guys will hear more about that soon. And looking forward to doing that with the community over the coming month and a half or so. And so stay tuned, and we'll let you know what that's going to be.
Yeah, one of the things we want to do is, I think now that Moto 13 India is out, is sort of spread the word. Maybe we'll do a little Pigs of Fondue thing on that, but spread the word. The more Moto users, the better it is for everybody. And along with William's sort of intro to Moto or Moto Basics PDF or basic weekend training camp program, it's a really good combination. And let's get some more Moto users out there. Michael?
I did want to I want to pick up on that. Someone was asking about the searching before, and I saw that Rich post. The searching on KiteString, I think, is one of the more powerful things there. It's really cool. It allows you to go in. It's almost like using Google when you didn't even know that existed before, because you search for what you want, it brings it up, you find it, and obviously a wealth of general Moto training. That's great, but just the character stuff is really amazing there.
And that's thank you for mentioning that, Michael, because that was one of the ones I was trying to retain to mention again, because with the searching thing, KiteString is very relevant, but we should just make sure that everybody knows, go check out Rich's site, KiteString, and the training he's done for rigging in Moto. This is a paradigm shift in how you do rigging, especially facial rigging. And you really need to take a look at it. It is definitely, you're going to be able to do amazing things with it, and you'll be hearing so much more about those amazing things from Rich in the coming months.
Yeah, totally. We'll get him back on here soon. Okay, so stay safe, everybody. Stay 6 feet away from everybody else on the planet. Wash your hands. You guys are in hard-hit areas where, best of luck. It's a tough time. And so stay positive and, learn some new stuff while you got this chance. Spend time with your family. And we'll catch you at the next live stream. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. Later.
Later.